One of Batman's core beliefs is that there is no such thing as a lost cause. Everyone makes mistakes, and people should always be given the chance to make amends if they genuinely want to do so. It's why he doesn't kill any of his rogues. Instead, he ensures that they are given the appropriate punishment for their crimes. The mentally unwell villains are sent to Arkham, the greedy crooks are sent to Stonegate Prison. Even utterly reprehensible villains like the Joker are given the chance to reform, and we know he'll never do it, because Batman sincerely believes that people can change. And the later episodes of Batman the Animated Series, when it was rebranded to The Adventures of Batman and Robin, explored the idea of villain reformation several times. I've already looked at how villains like the Penguin, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy attempted to reform, with varying degrees of sincerity. The Penguin wanted to reintegrate with high society, but lashed out and reverted to his old ways when he was made fun of. Harley Quinn crumbled at the first obstacle that was placed in front of her. And Poison Ivy wanted everyone to think she had reformed, but in reality, she was up to her old tricks. In this video, I want to look at another villain that became fed up of having his schemes foiled and decided to go straight, with a pretty big caveat that he needed to get the better of Batman one final time before he could do so. We're talking about the excellent episode Riddler's Reform. I've talked previously about how the creative team on Batman the Animated Series struggled to come up with compelling Riddler stories. If you're going to write an engaging story about the Riddler, you need to come up with some pretty good riddles. So it's telling then that the episode was worked on by three titans of the BTAS writing team: Paul Dini, Alan Burnett and Randy Rogel. I think we all know Paul Dini's contributions to BTAS. He co-created Harley Quinn, he wrote some of the most memorable episodes such as Heart of Ice, Joker's Favour, and many, many more. Alan Burnett was the man that was brought on board to help steer BTAS straight after producers Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski got into a significant creative disagreement with their head writer, Sean Catherine Derrick. Burnett oversaw the scripting of the entire series and was responsible for coming up with the premise for many of the best episodes. For instance, Alan Burnett is the one that came up with Two-Face's new origin story and assigned the script to Randy Rogel, who also wrote the beloved two-parter Robin's Reckoning. So when we see their names on the title card, we know that this episode is going to be good. One of the things I find fascinating about the BTAS version of the Riddler is the fact that he is a games designer. He designed the hit video game The Riddle of the Minotaur, which made his employer, Competitron Software, incredibly wealthy. So wealthy, in fact, that they caught the eye of Bruce Wayne, who bought the company and moved it to Gotham. A huge part of Edward Nygma's identity comes from the fact that he is probably the smartest guy in the room, and he feels deep frustration whenever he gets outsmarted. Like when he tried to sue for royalty payments from Riddle of the Minotaur, only to find that he had signed a work-for-hire contract which denied him a share of the profits. His response to this was to abandon the identity of Edward Nygma, to the point that he hired men to gather up all the physical copies of the records that proved his existence, and then shredded them. It might have been easier for him to just go down to City Hall and change his name. But hey, who am I to argue with a genius? When Batman foiled his attempts at getting revenge on the greedy executive that denied him his fair share of the profits, Batman became the Riddler's new target. He had used his skills in video game design to build a virtual reality trap. Batman may have him beaten when it comes to physical strength, but in the virtual world of his own creation, the Riddler's mind gave him an advantage. Or so he thought. Batman was still able to outsmart him, and the resultant feedback locked Riddler in a comatose state for an undisclosed period of time. By the time we see the Riddler in Riddler's Reform, he has been released from Arkham and signed an exclusive deal with the company Wacko Toys to design a range of toys and puzzles. And perhaps to the surprise of very few people, these new toys are very successful. Riddler has pretty much everything he ever wanted: fame, recognition, wealth, but he's still deeply dissatisfied because he can't get over how Batman defeated and humiliated him. As part of his new scheme, he devises riddles that have multiple answers. He knows that Batman's going to solve these riddles, but if there are two possible answers, then he's at least got a 50-50 chance of getting away with it. However, this isn't enough for him. The Riddler is smart enough to recognize that he has a problem, that he is compelled to commit these crimes to try and get one up on Batman. He succeeded once, but now that Batman is aware that there are possibly multiple answers to his riddles, he'll know to look out for them. And the most galling thing for him is when Batman confronts him at a party. Batman astutely points out that he is aware that the Riddler is compelled to commit these crimes. He literally can't help himself from leaving clues for Batman to solve, and if his past form is anything to go by, he's going to slip up one day and Batman will be ready to cart him back to Arkham. This is the most interesting thing about the Riddler. He's such a smartass that he literally cannot stop himself from goading Batman, even though he knows it will only result in him going back to Arkham. He clearly takes pride in the fact that he fooled the doctors into thinking he had recovered, and is genuinely depressed by Batman's assessment because he knows he's right. It is a compulsion for him. However, rather than admitting he has a problem and attempting to get treatment to better himself, he decides that the problem isn't really with him, it's Batman. So, the solution he comes to is to try to murder Batman. Once he's dead, he will truly have bested him and will feel closure. Only then will he be able to put his silly, obsessive behaviour behind him. Of course, this is complete nonsense. Even if he did defeat Batman, he'd only focus his attention on someone else that he felt wronged by. He did the same thing after he deeply traumatised Daniel Mockridge. He shifted his focus to Batman. Edward Nygma is an arrogant bully that lashes out at people that make him feel small. However, the fundamental issue is that he is such a narcissist that someone simply being better than him at something feels like a personal attack. When he thinks he's winning, he's funny and charming. He even manages to attract the attention of a beautiful lady, possibly for the first time in his life based on his nervous reaction to her affections. But as soon as Batman gets involved, he starts to feel inadequate. As arrogant as he is, he's equally insecure about his own intelligence. It's why he flies into a rage when he gets defeated. It's why he deleted all of his personal records from the system, almost erasing himself as punishment for failing to get the better of Mockridge and Batman. It's why he feels he has to resort to murder. The Riddler constructs the perfect Deathtrap, an inescapable room with a huge bomb inside of it. All he has to do is lure Batman to the trap, seal the room, and hey presto, no more Batman. Riddler acknowledges that without Batman there is no need to be the Riddler anymore, as he removes his costume and casually burns it. This is supposed to be symbolic of him letting go of his negative personality traits, embracing his life as a successful toy designer. As an aside, this also acts as a nice explanation for his change in appearance during the new Batman adventures. He had burned his original timeless outfit and decided to start wearing a leotard instead. More proof that he is not as sane as he claimed. The Riddler's euphoria is abruptly ended when Batman dramatically enters the room, causing the Riddler to have what can only be described as a major mental malfunction. The Riddler cannot figure out how Batman escaped his perfect death trap, and finding the solution becomes his #1 priority. He even offers to tell Batman how he committed his robberies and where he has hidden the loot, indirectly confessing his crimes to Commissioner Gordon, who is listening in using one of the Riddler's own devices. The irony. When Batman refuses to take the Riddler's offer, it drives him insane. Well, more overtly insane than usual. The episode ends with the Riddler locked up in Arkham, shrieking his lungs out, demanding that someone just tells him how Batman did the impossible. How Batman escaped an inescapable room, much to the annoyance of all the other patients at Arkham. Turns out Batman, realising that there really was no way out, climbed inside of a nearby safe to shield himself from the blast. Although I find myself wondering how he got out from a closed safe. Perhaps it has a safety release on the inside, just in case someone ever climbed inside and accidentally locked themselves in. Anyway. While the Riddler didn't appear in many episodes, and to be frank his first 2 appearances were a bit weak, Riddler's Reform is easily his best episode, if not one of the best episodes in the entire series. After looking at these villain reform episodes, I find myself feeling a bit dejected, as it seems like very few of the villains actually wanted to reform. They just wanted people to think that they had reformed, so that they could continue living their selfish lives without the interference of Batman or the police. It turns out that, in the case of the Riddler anyway, there was one way to get him to direct his manic, egotistical energy in a more positive direction, by having him try to be better than Batman at solving mysteries, as we saw in Batman Adventures Volume 2, written by Ty Templeton and Dan Slott, and eventually Paul Dini's run on Detective Comics. He was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all, but directed his efforts towards helping people, showing himself to be a better detective than Batman. It's not exactly what I would call a reform, but when it comes to one of Gotham's costumed villains, I think it's about as close as we're gonna get. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my current channel members, who are all listed on the screen right now. Next time I'm going back to the streets of Neo-Gotham to talk about Dr. Abel Cuvier, also known as Chimera, and look at how the radical gene-altering treatment called splicing has deep roots to villains seen in Batman the Animated Series. Hope to see you then.